And welcome to this segment of the OHIO podcast. Today, Eric, we're just going to kind of delve in a little bit to an incident that happened over the weekend following the spring game, and that was Brian Hartline being in an ATV accident on his own property. First and foremost, let me say I'm really happy that Brian Hartline and his passenger are both okay. They have been released from the hospital, suffering only minor injuries. I've been a huge fan of Hartline from his playing days through his coaching days. And I'm truly happy that he's good. That being said, Eric, we got to kind of dive into this incident a little bit because this could have some major consequences. First of all, as most people heard, if you haven't, I'm going to go ahead and lay it out for you. It has been reported that alcohol was a factor in the accident. Coach Hartline, as well as his passenger, who has no university affiliation, were both reportedly drinking, according to a report from the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. Now, I'm sure people are going to say, hey, his property, his own time, what's the issue? Well, Eric, I want to dive into the legality of it first a little bit. So, for me, the legal standpoint is this. Ohio, according to the Ohio Revised Code 4511-19, no person shall operate a vehicle, streetcar, or trackless trolley of any sort within the state of Ohio if at any time of the operation the person is under the influence of alcohol, a drug of abuse, or a combination of them. Now, Eric, Ohio does not distinguish between private property or public domain in this. So Brian Hartline very likely, depending on what his blood alcohol limit was, could be charged for operating a vehicle under the influence, which is a first-degree misdemeanor in the state of Ohio. That being said, because of the injury to the passenger in the vehicle, the charges could be upgraded should the police decide to proceed. The DA, yeah, should the DA decide to proceed with this. So it's possible he could get hit with a felony charge in this, Eric, and that's kind of a scary concept, given his job and his stature within the university. Now, we don't know Brian Hartline's blood alcohol content at this time. They did not perform a field sobriety test at the time of the accident. That being because they felt it was more important to get he and his passenger the medical attention they needed at the time. I'm sure, however, it was performed at the hospital. So he's going to have this legal situation hanging over his head until this is resolved. So, Eric, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the legality of what happened.
Dumb. I know that that's probably not what you wanted to hear, Chris, but I'm one of those people that's going to be like his property, his ATV, and if the other guys in the seat with him, I'm sure was probably drinking too, more than likely.
He was, according to reports, he was as well.
So the law's dumb. Not every law is a makes sense to me. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna defend Brian Hartline on this, even though I personally don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
I've never drunk and drive because I don't drink alcohol. Uh, I've never been tempted by that. It's just not something that I find necessary for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being a judge. I don't want to judge people. So, what he does on his time in his property, to me, is his business. Um, it's unfortunate that the accident took place, and that's just my 2 cents on the legality of it. But
Yeah.
will Delaware County, which is where I live,
Mm-hmm.
will they do something? Well, there is a precedent here. His name is Zach Smith.
Yes.
former wide receiver coach at Ohio State before Brian Hartline, had some legal trouble here in Delaware County with the sheriff's office, with his former wife. Of course, that led to the eventual departure of Urban Meyer. I don't think that we're seeing a repeat of history here or anything.
No.
I just find it ironic that the wide receiver coach who lives in Delaware County, which is just north of Columbus a little bit, is finding himself in legal trouble with the same sheriff's office that Zach Smith did. So, those things being said, um, I'm hoping that they will not press charges and they let this thing die because you and I both know that the negative recruiting has already begun.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And this is my thought on it, Eric. If the other individual isn't injured, I almost think that in a sense Delaware County had given themselves an out by not doing a field sobriety test at the time.
No harm, no foul type thing.
Yes. However, with the injury, if you get a zealous prosecutor who wants to make a statement, like you said, the legal precedent is there. And the fact is, Brian Hartline did technically break the law. Whether the law is right or wrong, it was on the books. And we've taken this argument. When we've talked about NCAA sanctions, you and I have gone around and around with this with
Yeah.
with Tattoo Gate.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, the law is on the books, and he broke the law. Um, Now that being said, I want to dive. And you said something about the negative recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into that professional and moral implication of the incident as well. First of all, let me say I'm not calling for Brian Hartline to be fired. I am not calling for that at all.
No way.
Um,
not
I
a, not a chance, man.
at least not until we see what kind of criminal charges come from this. And again, if his blood alcohol content is severely over the legal limit, and he did something that put himself and another individual in jeopardy, then I might reconsider my stance. However, I don't think so given the nature of the circumstance. However, I do feel there does have to be consequences to the action, not just the natural consequences. I mean, here you've got a guy who is a leader of young men, a man who goes into people's homes and says, trust me with your child's academic and professional future.
Right.
And then we see an accident like this occur. And it hurts his credibility, Eric. I mean, obviously, it hurts his credibility. Additionally, here's a guy who, as he is a employee of the Ohio State Athletic Department, and he is among some of the highest of the paid employees for the state of Ohio. For him to behave in a manner like this is somewhat unfortunate and unacceptable. And yeah, I know he was on his own property. Yeah, I know he was on his own time. And of course, he has the right to have a personal life. But as a top coach at a top university, an employee of a state, you're going to be held to a higher standard. And you
Sure.
should be held to a higher standard. You accepted the position and you chose to live your life in the public eye. And as such, now you've got to deal with the fallout and the consequences of your actions. Now, again, Eric, I'm not saying fire the guy, but I do believe a suspension without pay is not inappropriate or unwarranted for this. I mean, maybe it's a 2 or 3 game suspension without pay, um,
That seems extreme, dude.
pending any criminal charges, of course.
Well,
But now and I figured you might say this, but I want to think you have to go out and you have to send a message to the players, the coaches, and anyone else affiliated with the university. This isn't going to be tolerated. I mean, you look, if an NCAA athlete goes out and gets charged with a DUI, he could lose his scholarship. He could
mhm.
be suspended. He could be dismissed from the program. So, what kind of a message are you sending to athletes if you allow your coaches to get away with this, but then you give these consequences to the student?
The difference is he's on his own property,
But it's not a difference when you look at the law in the state of Ohio.
which is why I said it's stupid.
But stupid or not, it's still the law.
I understand that, which is why there will be consequences.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing.
Now, I think it's
Good.
two things. I think it's twofold. I think number one, the timing of this is absolutely awesome for Ohio State. They
It is.
just they just finished spring ball. There's this huge gap that the media will not have to interact with the coaching staff for a long time.
Yes.
He has a lot of time to quietly serve whatever,
Penance.
yeah, whether that be community service, whether that be traffic school. Sorry. I mean, that's probably what it's going to
Yeah.
be. And then he will obviously have a public apology of some kind that will be written and then submitted. And then when he sees the media again and then the questions come, Brian Hartline will probably say something on the lines of, refer to my public apology, and I've been informed and advised to not speak on this matter moving forward. And that's it. And we probably won't know the slap on the wrist that he really gets until a year later, if when they report the finances from the university, since
Mhm.
it's a public university, what that was. And it might not be anything other than just time and then the amount of money he would have got from that time. So whether that be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. What this that's the first part.
Yep. Good.
That's probably what's going to happen. Here's the second and more serious part to this, and you hinted on it, and that is the recruiting aspect of this. When he walks into parents' homes and the recruiter who was in their house right before he got there will say to them, "Listen, you can trust me with your child. I've never had a DUI. Ask Brian Hartline if he's had one."
Yeah. Yeah.
And if
Absolutely.
you don't think that Jim Harbaugh and his staff would use that to their advantage, you're crazy, because they absolutely will.
I'm not going to lie, Eric. If I was an opposing coach, I would use that to my advantage.
So,
Absolutely.
he's going to have to overcome that. And here's the third thing. I said two things, but here's the third thing. This gives Ryan Day an opportunity to basically sit him down as the play caller for a year.
Yes, it does.
Ryan Day can basically say, "Look, you're not ready. I'm going to have you on the headset with me this year so you can hear me call plays. You might even get to call plays at the end of the game when it's in hand. But this offers Ryan Day the ability to remain as the play caller for 2023, and he can use the time that he was suspended as the reasoning by. He could use the fact that this happened and he's not mature enough, maybe you could say. There's a lot of different reasons
I'm
Ryan
not so
Day
sure
could
that's a
use.
good thing, though, Eric.
That Ryan Day's the play caller? I do.
Yes. Yeah.
I do. I think Ryan Day, if he calls a game like he did against Georgia, we're going to be okay.
I've lost a lot of faith in Ryan Day as a play caller in the last couple of years, given
You
the fact
lost a
that he
lot
gets.
of you've lost faith in Ryan Day's ability to win the against the game team up north. That's what you've lost. You cannot
Yep.
honestly, and this is a different argument, but you can't honestly tell me he did not call an amazing game against Georgia.
I believe he got conservative again towards the end.
On the last three calls,
Not just the last three calls, but once Harrison Jr. goes down, I think he becomes ultra conservative.
I think he had to. You and I both just saw what happened in the spring game over there.
We did, but that doesn't make it right. You can't just lose your aggression, man.
Well, that's beside the point. That's not
That
really
is
what this
beside the point.
conversation.
But I
But
do have another thing I'd like to touch on.
sure.
We talked about people affiliated with the university. Did you happen to check out the witness list of people who reported being a witness to the accident?
No.
One Justin Fry was also at this event. Now, whether it does not say that he
On a
was
Sunday
drinking,
morning too.
it does not say that he was drinking. It does not indicate that he was acting in any inappropriate manner. but he was there for this event.
What were they
The
doing? Like they were having some kind of baja on a Sunday morning?
I have no idea.
And where's
Um,
where's this at in Delaware County, man? Because I live in Delaware County.
I
There's not
believe it's
too
on
many
Perry Road.
there's not too many places where you can get out in the country here in Delaware County.
I believe it said that his residence was on Perry Road.
I have to go look that up.
That was in one of the reports I read. I don't recall exactly where, but um, yeah, I mean, I think this is a very concerning incident. And again, you mentioned that this could be happening at a good time, and it may be happening at a good time, unless you get that prosecutor who wants to pursue it, because you know how the legal system works. It's going to drag out into the summer ball and possibly into the beginning of the season. So that could become quite a distraction as well. Should a prosecutor decide to pursue this? So yeah, I'm honestly, Eric. You know, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. You know, you say the law is stupid. I don't entirely disagree with you. However, I am always under that firm belief that the law is the law. You know it. You break it. You suffer the consequence.
Hmm. I know exactly where this is at. I just looked up where Perry Road is. Not too far from the Olentangy Indian Caverns.
Yeah. So,
Some pretty
I
nice
mean,
houses on that road.
yeah. Well, you know, you'd think a guy making 1.6 million would have a pretty nice house.
Probably had that was a pretty
But,
sweet ATV. I saw a picture of it too.
well, yeah, and there's actually, if you look, there's body cam footage of the officers there doing the crime scene investigation. So,
Crime scene. Gosh. You know, one of the things I hate about this in closing, Chris, is how the national media runs with everything.
and they're going to. Had this
If
happened
this
at any school but Ohio State,
if this happened down south, oh gee, he just out having a good time, man.
he done tipped his four wheeler over.
Oh shucks, that sucks. Cousin Billy did the same thing last week.
Let's get Jim, Joe, Bill, Bob. We'll stand that son of gun back up, and we'll get that thing going.
But but you know, happens in Columbus, so it's like
It's not just Columbus. It's because it happened to Ohio State. You know, you look. There are a few institutions in this country, Ohio State one of them, Notre Dame another one, that if you get this kind of negative press, the rest of the country is going to run with it.
hmm.
Um, you know, honestly, had this happened to any other school in the Big Ten, I don't think it's as big a deal.
So what do you think Ryan Day does?
I think Ryan Day has to come out and make a statement. And honestly, to me, I think if you're going to give him a suspension, a 2 game suspension would be sufficient.
Do you
Two
think
games,
he do
no
you think
pay.
he excuse me, do you think he leans on Gene Smith in
Gosh,
the
I hope
athletic
not. Who knows what he'll self-impose?
department?
I hope
I think
not.
he does. I think he
Who
goes
knows
to
what
Gene
Gene
Smith.
Smith? What's Gene Smith going to self-impose? Another bowl ban?
No. Gosh, you're overreacting, man.
No, I know. I'm
This
just
whole thing to me is an overreaction. This whole thing. And I'm probably the most conservative person you might know in real life, man. Like I'm pretty doggone conservative. And I still think this is just blown out of proportion.
well, and I get the argument about it being his property. I really do. But you know, unfortunately, the government, you know, the state of Ohio doesn't distinguish that, and it would be difficult to distinguish because you simply distinguish public property from private property because then you could be if you don't make the distinguish it from his property specifically, he could come on your property and tip over an ATV and you know run over some neighbor kid and it's all okay.
Why are we taking it here, man?
I'm just giving you the argument that you're going to
Gosh.
hear from everybody outside of the state of Ohio.
You laugh at them. That's how you treat these people. You laugh at them. It's no big deal. Whatever, dude. Walk on. Walk away. Turn away. I mean, look at how they're treating recruiting right now and breaking all the NCAA rules. Whatever. We don't
Well,
care
the,
about you.
the NCAA is a toothless animal. It doesn't matter.
So why would we care what public perception is on this? We
I,
shouldn't.
You know what? It's a matter of a like I said, the legality of it, and I think the other thing is Eric. The consequences that comes to recruiting and how it affects the university. Those are two.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
What was comparing what happened to Brian Hartline with what was going on with Zach Smith? What's
Well, come on,
worse?
you can't really. I mean, an OVI
Uh,
versus domestic violence.
exactly. That's my point. And it's not even an OVI as far as like out on Route 23. It was is at his house. I mean, this would be like this would be
But
like
you realize if he tips, if this guy, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If
if
this, if
if
this guy that was
but
the
it didn't happen.
passenger dies, it's vehicular homicide.
Right. Right, which is why there will be a small consequence because of the if, but not because of the was. The was didn't happen. It's the if. And so there will be a slap on the wrist. They'll 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 brush this thing under the rug and we move on. End of story.
And again, I ask, what message is that sending to the athletes who are being more harshly penalized?
Let me ask you this. What message does it send to the athletes that we had two guys get kicked off the team 3 years ago or 4 years ago because they were being charged for rape? And guess what? They were found innocent.
Exactly.
Did we do the right thing then? We all praised Ryan Day for it. I don't think he made the right decision now that's all said and done because that tells anybody you can just go and make any accusation you want against the Ohio State player and they've automatically got to get kicked off the team.
And hindsight's 2020.
Bingo. Bingo. So don't overreact.
I'm not overreacting, Eric. I'm just simply stating the facts as they exist.
Don't overreact. It's
Nobody's
all good.
overreacting.
It's all good. And now
You
the
want to
one
be
thing,
over? You want to
if
overreact? Go ahead.
if he was drinking Bud Light, now you can react.
I can't even do this with you tonight, Eric. I just can't even with you tonight. Speaking of which, have you talked to Billy Bob to find out his take on this whole situation?
Yes. And we've yes, I have noticed that Billy Bob has not been drinking any Billy Bob Bud Lights just right ever since the infamous Twitter commercial. So
Good.
I would say Billy Bob has expanded his
Is it now Miller Lite just right?
alcoholic horizons. Let's call it that.
Is it Miller Lite just right, or are we just moving on to whiskey?
I think he's doing more like microbrewery and local brewery type stuff,
Okay.
helping the local guy out.
Well, hopefully he doesn't jump on his ATV afterwards.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Of course, I don't know what the statutes are in Florida, so
Well, they have DeSantis down there, so there's more freedom. So
wow.
I'm spicy tonight.
You're feeling it, Eric. You are feeling it for sure.
We're gonna have all kinds of mad comments in this one.
Well, and I'll tell you, believe it or not, it was the crazy comments that were online that even spurred this whole discussion tonight. I was reading through there, and just some of the things that were said amazed me. But some of them, I think, had some legitimate points about this whole thing, Eric. And I think we're gonna have to wait to see how it plays out. And I think the biggest thing comes out of will there or will there not be criminal charges?
I think you're right. In all seriousness, if the prosecuting attorney here in Delaware goes after him, it becomes a big story.
Yeah. It
Now, there's a 90% chance, 95% chance the prosecuting attorney is probably a big Buckeye fan and loves Brian Hartline. And let's just be honest, probably not going to go anywhere.
I don't know, man.
I don't
I
think it's
don't
going
know.
to go anywhere.
'Cause I've noticed that a lot of the folks there in Delaware, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah. What about us? What about us?
not all are as conservative as you, Eric.
Oh, no. Just ask my neighbors.
And there may be some public pressure to make a
Oh, yeah.
move
There
placed
will
on the
there
prosecuting
there will
attorney.
be some public pressure, both ways.
Yeah, yeah. But ultimately, let's face it, can you really afford to lose those tax dollars in Delaware County?
There's plenty of tax dollars to
Well,
go
I'm
around in
sure
this county.
I'm sure there is, but how many Ohio State coaches we got living in Delaware County?
Several.
Yeah,
I think Ryan Day lives in Delaware
he
County
does
as well.
indeed, from what I understand.
Yep.
But okay, well, that's all I had, Eric. I just wanted to hop on here. I wanted to touch on this subject, which, like I said, has been causing some fiery debates on the social media sites.
You touched on it and I flicked it away.
But but you know what, Eric? Again, it's all going to play out based upon what comes down from the prosecutor.
You're right.
There is no sweeping it under the carpet or hiding it, ignoring it. Should the prosecutor decide to move forward, and as you said, there is a precedent for it. Let's just hope that I'm just hoping it all works out the best for Brian Hartline and for the university.
Me as well.
Well, that's all I've got for tonight, Eric. Anything to add?
That's it.
All right, you want to take us home?
Sure, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH and sing Carmen Ohio with all your heart. Till next time, go Bucks.